podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition that they may have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professional for any such conditions. Hello, and welcome to Mind, Body, Luminosity. I'm your host, Dr. Holly Kendra, and I am joined by two guests today on this wonderful journey. One we've had on before. We have Kayla Archer back from Abundance Financial, and today we have a new guest. We have Brent Rath from CatchMark Technologies. And so today we're just going to have a really fun conversation on all things wellness. From a couple of different angles, I think, and just have a fun conversation.
Awesome.
So, Brent, do you want to give us a little introduction about who you are and about CatchMark Technology?
Yeah, I've been a technologist now for, I'm getting old, about 22, 23 years. I'm local. I grew up here, Montague Whitehall area, moved away, came back. And one of the wonderful things is I get to do what I love in the place that I love. So, again, my role is to manage the business of CatchMark Technologies. And sometimes the fringe benefits are I get to sit on podcasts with wonderful people like you guys. And, again, our goal at CatchMark is solving problems and helping people. So, when you asked me to come on, I think it's a really kind of fitting thing to be here because that's our goal and our mission. So
yeah, and I love that. I mean, and that's my goal as a doctor of naturopathic medicine is to help people and to help people solve health and wellness problems. So we're kind of in a very similar area. And then just as a reminder for people, Kayla, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so Kayla Archer, and I just kind of formed my own LLC, Abundance Financial, via New York Life or through New York Life. And I'm local to the area of Muskegon and Fruitport, so, just south of, Montague Whitehall. But my overall goal in my business is to help people find the balance of living their life today while saving for their future, because some people feel like they can't do both. But in my philosophy is there is room to do both. It's just having the knowledge and support to do so. So that's kind of what I try to do.
I love that. And I think that's, so all three of us, just so everybody knows, all three of us met through the Lakeshore Leaders Group, which is a group of networking professionals in the Muskegon kind of greater area. And we have some fantastic conversations, the three of us, either before or after, or even during the meetings sometimes. I think a lot of us see eye to eye on some things, and we have really found a way where we can support each other's businesses really, really well. And so that's why I thought it would be fun to have you two on for the podcast today to just, have a conversation.
Absolutely. Go Lakeshore Leaders.
So the first thing I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about was I wanted to talk about community resources and support networks. I mean, that's kind of one of our goals in the Lakeshore Leaders is to be resources and support networks for the businesses in the area. And I know that that's not directly health and wellness related, but it is in a sideways way to be a resource for somebody to help them find whatever they need. Yeah. And the more we can help people find and meet their needs, the easier it is for them to have a happy and fulfilling life, and then they're going to be healthier. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the support networks and the community resources that are out there. And the first one I wanted to touch on, and I was hoping Brent would touch on it for us, is CatchMark Community, because CatchMark has different arms. So there's CatchMark Technologies, there's CatchMark Sportsnet, and now you guys are opening up with CatchMark Community, who is hosting and sponsoring this podcast here. So if you could share a little bit with our listeners about CatchMark Community.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start back a little bit with just CatchMark in general. We are at our core a technology company. as we've grown service areas. And one of those that we thought, hey, how can we help people and solve problems was in the digital marketing space. And it started with COVID and just trying to help local athletes get more exposure, mostly, with people not being able to come to games. Can parents, grandparents, and people see their kids play? And so, fast forward 3 years, we thought that there's also an opportunity here. And it's all based on an article I read about news deserts, right? Like where in this age where we have all these technology resources and you can find out what's going on in China and Japan and Indonesia in 4 seconds, our local stuff is kind of being hidden in a sense, and not hidden on purpose. It's just the model that supported that is broken down, right? Like print advertising and the money there and the writers. So as we kind of grew CatchMark Sportsnet, saw the response, wonderful response from the community, we thought, okay, what are some ways we can do this same thing, but do it more community-based, less focused on just sports and athletics and that kind of stuff. And so we invested some money to create a website and to really start to highlight things like our community. And one of the things that I would say, and it's funny that I'm sitting on the podcast this week. I lost a dear friend of mine Saturday. My age, I've got a long history with Mr. Troy Moran, and his funeral's tomorrow, and it was just tragic. I mean, he's been a member of Oak Ridge and Hart and Montague and knows everybody, and his girls go to Montague High School, and so watching us be able to kind of, as a community, wrap our arms around him and his family, it only solidifies why we do stuff like this. And so we want CatchMark Community to be a resource for things like that, and kind of a resource for resources in a way as well. So like if you've got something, news that you need to get out, information you need to get out, or things that that people need to know to be able to take advantage of, I think that we want that to be a resource. One of the things that, as an NCO in the service, that one of your jobs was to help junior enlisted people understand the resources that were available, because a lot of them, all kinds of fabulous programs that nobody knew about, so they weren't being used. And so that's what we kind of hope CatchMark Community will be. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's one of the reasons I love this area, this West Michigan area. And, after moving here, I was really unsure when we first made the move across the country of where I was going to end up and what I was going to find when I moved out here. But what I found was community. Yeah. And I love that. I absolutely love that about this area, and that, everybody can come together and be supports for each other, be resources for each other. And so I love that you have CatchMark Community out now, and that it's a place to go for lots of information.
Yeah.
So shameless plug, if you're not already following CatchMark Community on Facebook and all the socials, make sure you do, because there's a lot of really good information that's coming out through that platform now.
One thing I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, Troy's funeral is tomorrow, and we are live streaming it via CatchMark Community. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll get a link out today. It's kind of, those things happen very quickly. So, yeah. But yeah, just a kind of a plug for that too.
Thank you for doing that. That's great. That's great. Kayla, what kind of, I know that you work in the Muskegon area. Your office is here in the greater Muskegon area, but you live a little bit further east as well. Are there any other community resources or support networks that you have kind of found in your neck of the woods over there, or with the financial space as well?
Yeah. So I live in Cedar Springs, which is about an hour from here. And I'll be honest, I don't know if it's one of those things where there might be resources out there. I'm just not aware of them. So if I'm not aware of them, there's probably other people out there who aren't as well. And I think that's one of those gaps of, things that could be solved. But, in Muskegon, I think it's about finding that group of people that can help you, because everybody has those personalities, things like that you don't always mesh with, but there are people that you do. And I think leaning on those resources, like the Lakeshore Leaders, something that we've all found and are a part of, that is That's how I got introduced to you and your type of work, where before I wasn't introduced to things like that. So it's leaning on the people that you know, that you trust, getting outside your comfort zone a little bit too, and doing something like finding a group of people
Right.
can be helpful.
For sure.
But in terms of like specific organizations, I'll be honest, I'm just not sure.
Yeah, no, it's and that's, it speaks to the CatchMark community
Yeah.
thing as well as like, if anybody has any thoughts or ideas or knowledge of these different groups or resources out there, make sure that you get that information to CatchMark community so they can get that out to the
Absolutely.
greater West Michigan area.
Couple of things that just as I'm thinking about it, because we don't do a great job of this either. Rotary. I'm a Rotary member of Montague and Whitehall. And one, you give back as part of Rotary, right? Like there's lots of money donated, lots of time, and great people. But it also every week, or we have a program, and we have somebody come in from the community that is trying to advertise these resources. So things like the United Way, the American Red Cross, like a lot of really good programs that So get out, like you said, Kaylee, get out of your comfort zone, go out, join some of these groups, and just meet people. And I think you start learning about it. But again, you're just giving me ideas to have Rotary members come in, and then maybe we
Yeah.
live stream our presenters at Rotary. So like great idea. But yeah.
Yeah, and chambers are a
Oh,
great,
Chamber of Commerce,
great
yeah.
space for meeting people and doing the different events in the communities and everything. Like I did the business expo
Yeah,
a
wonderful.
couple months ago, and I met a lot of community members and a lot of different resources through that. There's actually way more resources there than I
Yeah.
expected. And I expected it to mostly be just businesses, but there were definitely resources there for people. So
Have either of
Yeah.
you two heard of the Meetup app?
no.
I have. I've
Yeah.
not used it. Yeah.
I started using it probably about 3 years ago when I first started my financial practice, because I've
Yep.
had to build this thing from, the ground up, one person at a time.
Yeah.
So I had to meet people and I had to network and things like that. So I got on this app, and there's so many groups of people that have just different interests. There are groups of people who they meet up and they walk once a week, or they have scheduled walks that
Right.
you just join. Some of it's free, sometimes you have to pay for some things, but they're pretty transparent. There was a group that had was it like a dry but sober social or something like that. I don't remember what the name was, but I'm not a big drinker. So when I hang out with people, I don't want to go to bars and drink and things like that. So I was looking
Yeah.
for people who don't do those things, and I found a group. And there's people who play board games, on certain days, and there's like
That's
it's a
awesome.
free app that you can use. So I guess I would use that as a resource too, because you can just whatever you're interested in. I bet you there's a group out there who are doing
Yeah.
something similar.
I mean,
That's
just
awesome.
from a wellness perspective,
Yeah.
like to find like people to, if you're lonely and you need to hang out. I know,
Yeah.
I know one of the senior center in Montague is a big deal. My dad, as he retired, like I never thought of him as a guy that would enjoy the senior center, but he went down there and played cards every day. He had his group of friends. Like it was
Yeah.
kind of cool. So
Well, and humans are at our most fundamental level. We're community beings. We need community. We need to be together. We need to be with other people. And that's, one of the reasons that I think some of the policies that were enacted during the COVID era,
Oh, yeah, it was
were
tough.
so damaging to people.
Yeah.
Because we were kept from community. And so a lot of people had, then kind of succumbed to mental health conditions and things like that. So it became really, really tough. So making sure you find your community, I think, is really important. And, comes back to that CatchMark community thing. I think
no,
we
absolutely.
keep going full circle on that today, and I love it.
Holly, I'm going to mention
So-
one thing to you.
Yeah.
Be careful about touching the table because your camera wiggles
yeah.
a lot. I know it's hard. I'm trying to not touch it either, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Fun times.
Yeah.
Trying to stay back and forth.
Yeah, back and forth without touching stuff. I know.
Without touching
I
stuff.
know.
So it's always fun.
Every time I try to pick up my soda, I'm trying not to make big clunking noises. So yeah.
Don't move. Okay, well, let's pivot that then, because we were talking a little bit about mental health and,
Yeah.
and community and how important community is to mental health. How do we all address our mental health and wellness, especially over the last few years?
Wow. Well, I mean, I can start, Kayla. I'll tell you, like, it's been, for me in my life, it's been a progression. I come from a family of just strong-willed, get it done kind of people. And I think that's very good. I think the work ethic that my parents kind of instilled in me is phenomenal. On the flip side, you sometimes tend to internalize and just take it all on. And so I think for me, it's been a progression. I think people like that also, it's a control thing. And so the longer you live, the more you're going to realize that you just really don't control everything. And that can be a hard adjustment for people. I know it was a hard adjustment for me. And so I think just stepping back and understanding you can have influence without control. And, for me, it's being plugged in with, my church and my faith. And so I think that to me helps a lot. I lost my dad a couple years ago. And I mean, just looking at the good and that there's a purpose for those types of things and what is that purpose, and not focusing on myself in that, but how can this tragic event help other people, so tough. But yeah, and talking to people like this is good too.
Yeah.
And I think that's the root of what I was getting at, is like sometimes you just internalize it and you just try to plug away and keep going, but having those close people that you can kind of count on and rely on. So
Yeah, I feel like I'm fairly similar. I mean, my parents instilled a pretty hardcore work ethic in me, and I'm also, I like to refer to myself as a perfectionist, and it's funny because I'd say I'm a control freak all the time, and I actually, one of the books I'm reading right now is The Perfectionist's Guide to Losing Control.
Oh yeah,
And
that's a good one.
I have never felt so seen
Yeah.
in reading this book. And so if you consider yourself a perfectionist, I highly recommend you read this book, because it is important to figure out how to take that work ethic, that perfectionism, that control, that need for control, and to harness it and to turn it around and use it for good, and not be kind of hampered by it.
I think it's balance too.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can go too far the one direct, like having somewhere in the middle. Like you don't
Exactly.
want to lose all of it, but some of it. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's funny. I would say I'm the opposite of you two. I'm a little more go with the flow kind of girl.
Yeah.
I do have some tendencies of perfectionism and wanting it to be a certain way, but it's, I don't feel like I have that control side of things. I go with the flow, roll with the punches, right? So I find that limiting screen time, not even necessarily screen time, but like mindless scrolling, you don't always realize it in the moment how like draining that can actually be. I think fresh air and a walk goes a long way.
Oh, heck yeah.
Too.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
That is in the middle of COVID. I had just graduated college, and for the first time in my life, I had nothing to do. I was not working 2 jobs. I didn't have school or anything like that to work on. My dad and I would walk together every single day, and that was nice. It was like stress free. I got to spend time with my dad. We walked. We kind of worked on our fitness and things, and it was nothing crazy. Like we just.
Yeah.
My dad's a fast walker, so you do got to keep up.
Leave you in the dust.
Yeah, basically.
You're like a mile back.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
I mean, and walking is so good for you on so many levels. Not only just to get your body moving on a regular basis, but it gets you outside more often than not. You're walking outside. And, I talked before on the podcast when I was talking about light therapy, about, sunlight, getting sunlight in your eyes, helping with the circadian rhythm, getting that fresh air, getting, seeing all the different vibrant colors that are out there. It's so good for our mental, emotional health to just get outside every now and again.
It really is.
Yep.
It really is. I feel for the kids of today when they're like, iPad babies, which we have a daughter at home who's an iPad baby, so I can't, but it's just like go outside and play.
Yeah.
You don't always have to play video games or watch a show or, be glued to a screen.
Yeah.
And it's just a different day and age,
I feel, my boys are similar in that, they love to come home and they love to play video games. It's like one of the first things they do. And unfortunately, right now, that's, kind of one of the options, especially if it's a rainy day.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you need to go downstairs and play your games because your dad's still working and
Yeah.
he's upstairs and can't have you upstairs disturbing him. So, but, these nice days like this, they get home and I try and kick them outside to the trampoline or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
you guys got to spend some time outside.
I do think exercise is one of the things that people just underestimate how much better it will make you feel. And again, some people get it, like, you don't have to go in and lift a gazillion weights or run marathons. It's like you said, Kayla, it's getting moving and getting outside. Sometimes just breaking a little bit of a sweat and like, but I think it just completely changes your perspective on things. And yeah, I can't say enough about it. I don't do it enough myself, but like, again, getting out and doing that. So
yeah, I mean, we have 2 huskies.
goodness sakes.
They're husky shepherd mixes, to be fair.
So
but
2 little dogs.
But they expect their walks. And they've gone from expecting 1 walk a day to 2 now. So like we get out there and we get them some walks twice a day, which is awesome. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to have a personal trainer on in a couple weeks here.
Awesome.
And we're going to have an awesome conversation about exercise, movement, mindset, everything like that. Because I think, like you said, it's so important. And a lot of us underestimate what it can do for your mindset and everything like that. And I think that, it's an important conversation to have to, hopefully people hear more about it. So on that note, what are some strategies that you guys employ for addressing any like mental health and stuff? I know we talked about exercise. What are some other
exercise? I read a lot. Writing sometimes also helps. Like, I try to contribute to CatchMark Community every now and again, and I think that helps. Talking to my wife, it helps a ton. I can't say enough about just having a partner with you that just kind of understands you and calls you out in the right spots and, helps to put things in perspective. It's I feel very, very blessed for the relationship that I have with her. I can't imagine. I see people that don't have that, and that's kind of hard. Spending time with people you love too. I think that's another big thing. We talked about exercise, but getting out and like one of my favorite things is going golfing with my boys and with Kara and like just spending time out there. And we're trying to walk more, push carts, and get exercise while we're doing it. So yeah,
I talk about a lot of times with my clients that come in the door doing things that bring you joy. Like you need to fill your cup. And I tell people all the time, you can't pour from an empty cup, because that's where I came from. I was pouring from an empty cup all the time. And, I pour, at my office into my clients. I pour at home into my husband, into my kids, into the pets that we have, our whole menagerie of animals. And so giving. And you can't pour from an empty cup. So going out and doing golfing, because it's something you love, or going for a walk or things like that, those are all ways to fill your cup. And that's how I think we need to help. That's one of the most important ways to help support our mental health.
I also think the word joy is extremely important to like focus on that, because I think a lot of people they choose activities that might make them, it helps with the dopamine. Does that make sense? But it's not true joy. So the other way, and I was remiss to not say this, is service. I think serving others is not always what you want to do, right? Like, again, I've lots of the ways that I serve. I don't necessarily wake up and I'm like, yay, I get to, but I always feel better after doing it. And so I think that's one thing I kind of learned from my dad, was just serving others can be an amazing way to kind of set yourself mentally as well. So and that brings joy. So
I think that's one of the reasons probably that we all ended up in service-based industries.
Probably
doing, helping others is a way that, helps us fill our cup. I know I feel incredible when I go have a really good, solid, full day at work. I always come home feeling great. I don't feel exhausted from work. Work always, fills my cup. So. What about you? What are some things that you like to do?
I think one thing I really want to touch base on is what Brent said, and like having a supportive partner or a partner that you can like learn and grow with and just be with. It's incredible.
It's a life hack.
Like
It is.
It really is. Yeah.
It is like
To find a true partner
yes.
is important. Yeah.
My partner Craig, he's my best friend. We can laugh together, we can have serious conversations together, we can work on things and grow together, which isn't always easy, but it's, he knows me and I know him. I can tell when he's stressed or when something's off, and it's just really cool. So when I see couples who don't have that, it's like, you're missing out, buddy. I'm so sorry. Like, and that doesn't mean you can't get there with that person that you're with necessarily, because I think you can if you both want it and work on it. But it's having a supportive partner, I think, makes all the difference.
Yeah.
I think you said a couple good things there, though, which is one, work, right? I think a lot of people go into relationships and they think, what can I get out of this?
Yeah.
And it's about pouring into that other person. A lot of like what we talk about at Lakeshore Leaders, like give, you know, and
Giving, not taking.
yeah, giving, not taking. And I think that, how, and I'm not sitting here telling you that like I do this perfectly, like, but it's like, how can I help? How can I help my wife be the best version of herself that she can be, and vice versa. And so but a lot of people go into that and think, how can I get? And I think that's where you see a lot of trouble. So I'm happy that you have that. And I think that it's a huge life hack. It really is. It makes everything that you do easier. So, yeah.
Even in the middle of wedding planning, it's not as stressful as what I was expecting it to be. Now I know we're still a year out, but we've been engaged since October. So it's, we've got quite a bit done, but it's been a fine process, I'll be honest. And that's kind of cool too. Like, I think another thing I do for some like mental health, I guess, is it's not always easy, but finding some quiet time. Like the other day it was raining. I brewed myself like a decaf. I'm an espresso girly. I love my Nespresso machine. And Craig and I just sat outside. We just, no phones. We just sat outside, kind of listened to the rain, watched our surroundings. And it's not always easy, but it's really nice. Especially if your phone's in your pocket and it's like, oh, I could just go scroll on Facebook real quick. Like, no. It's actually better to just sit here and listen, and just watch your surroundings. It's underrated, I think.
It is. It's so underrated because that is like the key to present moment awareness.
Yeah, it's the mindfulness.
It's mindfulness, exactly. And that's something that I talk about a lot. It's been the kind of the theme of my blogs recently has been present moment awareness, mindfulness, taking that time to just sit and be in the moment. Because, you're not worrying about the future. You're not ruminating over the past. You can just sit and be in the moment. And there's something so powerful in that for our brains to just help them kind of calm down, calm the rumination, calm the worry, calm the anxiety, and just be for just a few minutes.
Yeah, it's a practice.
It is.
Like you can't expect that it's going to go well every single time because it doesn't. But it's something you practice.
Yeah.
And it's like when when we're in Lakeshore Leaders meetings and we get to the, what's your favorite core value, and you have to let it sit for a minute, and it's
have any idea how hard that is?
It's hard to sit in the quiet sometimes.
It is. It's very hard.
It's a practice. Just let it sit and let that.
I think it resets your perspective.
Yeah.
I think you can get in this loop of like, and again, one of the things we talk a lot about here is control what you can control or change what you can change. And one of the things you can't change are things that already happened. But lots of people dwell on the things that already happened. Well, what can I do going forward? Well, how can I take action? Like rather than, but you have to sit and be quiet sometimes before you gain the perspective to be able to look at that and go, okay, I'm in the wrong mindset right now. I need to shift. So that's what
Right.
I'm not good at being quiet. I don't know if you can tell. Like, I'm working on it.
The Italian in me salutes that. I am not good at being quiet either. I don't know. I go into anytime I go to a speaking engagement or something and they want to hook me up with a mic, I'm always like, no, I'm good. I can project. I'm good.
Yeah, that's the same thing with me.
So cool. I thank you guys for sharing what you guys do, and I love that. I think it's those are all some great ideas that I hope people can take away from this episode on that. And I want to broach another topic, and so kind of pivot us a little bit. And I want to talk a little bit about access to healthcare and what we see in the community as our healthcare access options. I know that the big names are here. We've got Trinity, we've got Spectrum, things like that. And I see a lot on social media about, the wait times at different urgent cares, the wait times at the hospitals, things like that. And then, just having trouble, people having trouble even finding primary care doctors. And as somebody who is trained in primary care medicine, but not able to practice it here, it's hard for me to watch and incredibly frustrating. So what have you guys noticed in this area?
Oh, wow. So again, I go back to my background. My grandpa Griffin was born on his kitchen table and he passed away in his bed. And I can't remember him ever really even being in the hospital. So, but he was active. A lot of the things we talk about, he did. He was active. He was healthy. He had a sweet tooth, but he ate well and he didn't I think a lot of it is and a lot of what you do, I think, it's preventative, right? It's one, your mental attitude and your mental space can impact your physical health a lot. And so I think that's the first thing. Try to stay out of those places if you can, right? I think is what I would say. And I think a lot of our culture has gotten to, we're not patient, so we quick fix stuff. So we, the urgent care and the emergency room is inundated with people that probably could have prevented what's going on and probably could have just been patient and waited and found other ways to maybe heal. And I think that, so for those people that need access, I think the emergency access is always there, right? Kara my wife dropped a AI camera on her hand after a soccer game. She didn't come home right away. And I was like, where are you? And she's like, and then she sent me a picture of her bloody, she had to go get stitches.
Oh, no.
Yeah. She had 5 stitches in her finger right now. She's asking me to take them out. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. But again, so that emergency piece is there. I think it's the other stuff that we need to just societally be a little bit better at, be fit, get out. You know what I mean? Sometimes suffer. And I guess that's where I was going with that. I have a weird, and maybe it's not a weird philosophy. I don't think suffering's bad. I think suffering's necessary. I think all growth comes from suffering. If you just go down the fitness path, right? If you want to get fit, you have to suffer before you see the benefits. Whether that's losing weight, whether that's getting stronger, and then mentally it's the same way. You sometimes have to suffer mentally to improve your mental place, and you have to do hard things, and you have to think about hard things, and you have to, So, I don't think we have a will to suffer very much anymore, and I think that's where you see a lot of that stuff gets inundated with it. And I think the good thing is the people that come to you are people probably who have stepped back and are like, okay, there's got to be a different way that I can help myself without a traditional path, right? Without an antidepressant or without a, something like that. So I that didn't really answer your question, I guess, Ellie, but in a roundabout way, I gave you my philosophy on it, I guess.
No, I think that's great. And I think you're 100% correct. I've heard the saying before, and maybe you guys have too, in order to create a diamond, you have to put it under pressure.
Right.
And so if you're going to change and you want to make, any kind of change, you have to be put under some sort of pressure. Otherwise, you're not going to want to change. We're kind of, humans are kind of hardwired to stay comfortable and,
absolutely.
like to, get into a rhythm and, kind of keep things the way they are.
Ruminate.
People don't like to change. And so if we want to have change, we have to get a little bit uncomfortable first.
As a parent, great book. And I would say anybody out there, Jonathan Haidt wrote a great book called The Coddling of the American Mind. It's a phenomenal book. It's more focused around kids and, just parenting changes in the last 30, 40 years. And the idea that he's got the myth of fragility, that kids are fragile. And basically it's the same idea, but I think as adults, we fall into that as well. We're actually fairly resilient. So struggle's good. You have to learn, you have to touch the stove sometimes to learn not to touch the stove. Right?
Yeah.
So you don't burn the house down or you don't
Right.
so yeah.
Right.
Great book though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally of the mindset, like, I let my kids push it a little bit because then they find out, then
Yeah.
they learn. And, yeah.
Which is scary. As a parent, it's scary.
It's a little
You're
scary
like,
to watch sometimes,
Yeah.
but sometimes you got to let them test their limits and let them see that they can do hard things too.
My oldest son, Connor, and he has a congenital heart defect. And so he had surgery when he was like a year old, and he had open heart surgery right before he graduated high school. And one of the hardest things to do as a parent, he loved athletics. One of the hardest things, and I can't tell you how difficult it is to let your kid go run cross country when 6 months prior to that, he was put on bypass and he was, had open heart surgery. Like, and not just to let him do it, right? But to not freak him out about it, to be calm,
Right.
and every single time he ran, and he's a little older now, so we talk about it. Every time he ran, when he didn't come out of the woods at the time that I thought he was supposed to come out, I mean, you have that panic, and
Right.
but we would have done him a disservice to just coddle him in that situation. And the doctor's like, it's safe, and so yeah, just an example, but again, not easy as a parent, but yeah.
To Brent's point, I was listening to a podcast the other day because I'm a junkie. I listen to it. And there was a similar perspective where like true self-care is doing the hard thing. Like when you think of self-care, you think of, taking a nice like bubbly bath or doing something like calming and soothing. But like their perspective was true self-care is getting out of bed at the time you don't want to get out of bed, doing the workout when you don't want to do the workout, doing the things you don't want to do or the hard, stressful things is true self-care.
100%.
You come out better on the other side, and that's, caring for yourself when you do those types of things.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's like you said, doing the workouts, maybe when you don't want to. Like the other day, I did not want to go for a walk at the end of the day. I was so tired. I think it was after soccer practice and all the things. It was like 7,
You're
7:30.
mentally exhausted.
I was
physically
exhausted. But it was a sunny evening, and the dogs really wanted to go. They wouldn't take no for an
Those
answer.
stupid dogs.
And right, darn those dogs. They got us out. We went for a walk, and so thankful I went.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where, like, in the moment, you might not want to do it, but
Yeah.
in the end, you will thank yourself for it.
And you probably had to do a solid 45 minutes.
Oh, easily.
Right?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Because you're doing 75 hard.
Doing 75
and
hard.
If you do 40 minutes, you're starting over.
Going back to day
you have
one.
to do 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's that mindset of like, oh, I could just go out for 10, 20 minutes and that would feel
Right.
good. But you have to do 45 if you're committing to what you're committing to.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to make life changes for yourself, habit changes, things like that, it's easy to try and take the easy way out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just be like, I can check this box. I can, I did yoga, I did a bedtime yoga.
You tell yourself a narrative.
Yeah, exactly.
You get yourself
exactly. We all have this like internal conversation, but when you, like you said, to really take care of yourself and know and understand that you're doing this to improve and to make yourself better, to create that diamond within you, that personal excellence, like I've been talking about in education and Lakeshore Leaders. Shameless, several shameless plugs for Lakeshore Leaders here
Great
today. But
we need more trades.
If you're a tradesperson and you're listening, contact
Or a
us.
hairdresser.
Or a hairdresser.
That's the other one. That was last.
Or a CPA.
CPA.
Yeah.
But yeah, so working on personal excellence, and that's one of the podcasts I listen to is Andy Frisella's podcast, and he talks a lot about personal excellence and how when you work on yourself and you care about yourself and you kind of work towards that personal excellence, you take that out into the greater community and the world at large, and that's how one important way that you can give back and to kind of lead that back into our access to healthcare and what you were talking about, trying to prevent having to deal with, emergency rooms or urgent cares or things like that. Personal excellence and taking care of yourself and self-care and doing those preventative things is a huge way to improve access to healthcare, because then it's not overburdening our system that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Which the overburdening prevents there from being people that it prevents you from getting seen, essentially. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean the 5-hour wait times that we hear about, like if maybe if we all take it upon ourselves to like take that challenge and work on ourselves and care about ourselves enough to do things that bring us joy and move our bodies every day.
Do hard stuff.
Exactly, do hard stuff. And when I talk about movement with people, with my clients and stuff, I always start at like, okay, I just want you to start moving your body. It doesn't have to be, like you said, it doesn't have to be
1%.
lifting heavy weights. It doesn't have to be anything crazy big. You don't see the deer out there doing Pilates and stuff like that. They're just out there moving their bodies every day. And so, if we can even just start with 1%, with baby steps, one little thing at a time in these different areas, maybe start by adding one more vegetable into your day or one more color of the rainbow into your diet every day. One more thing at a time.
That Mountain Dew has colors.
Yeah, it's the green.
That's my one. That's my one vice.
Baja Blast.
My one vice. No,
is blue.
I don't drink regular. It's diet. It's just like a yellowish tint. One thing my wife talks about with like getting out and doing that stuff, and she's right like most times. But when you're my age, right? Like one of the things that has been super helpful, and she's got a quote where she talks about flexibility. You're as old as your flexibility allows you to be, and so. One of the things she's been bothering me is like I sat in a chair as a tech guy for most of my career, and like so my lower back gets tight. And she's got this whole, so I stretch, and I'm gonna tell you, it is phenomenal how much better you feel because you can have motion. And you watch people like that get older, in their 50s and 60s, and a lot of their problems are flexibility problems. They can't turn, which causes other things to happen too. So I'm shameless plug for my wife being right, for one, and two, just flexibility, like just stretching and things like, yoga and like, which again, 15 years ago, I'd been like, I'm not doing no yoga. Are you kidding me? I lift weights, right? Like, now I'm like, can I move my hips? Like that's, I think way too much about my hips now,
Right.
But yeah.
Well, even to that point, Craig, my fiance, he's a long distance runner. He has a group of friends and they love to do that stuff together.
Crazy.
But his mobility and flexibility is not that great. Can he run miles and miles? Yes.
Yep.
Can he stretch or like be flexible the way he's supposed to?
Can he touch his toes when he?
Yeah.
It might be a challenge most days.
Yeah.
But it's, he's starting to get into those things, but you can't just do one thing. Yes, you might be an athlete and be able to do certain things, but it's a balance. You have to work on the other things too.
Yeah, for sure. And shameless plug for finding a trainer. Find somebody
absolutely
that you mesh with. And I'm going to bring my trainer on, like I said, in a couple weeks. We're going to have an awesome conversation. She's a phenomenal trainer. But find somebody who can help you figure out how to move your body the best for you. Because as I, preach as a naturopathic doctor, we are all different. We're all individuals. What's going to work for Kayla is not going to work for me. What's going to work for me is not going to work for Brent.
Yep.
And so, trying to find somebody who can help you kind of personalize and adapt and suit your needs, I think is the most important thing to do in that realm.
Yeah.
So, well, any last thoughts or things on, wellness that you think are important to share today in our conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think balance. I think that's where most, I mean, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional or mental, most problems stem from a lack of balance. And most balance problems stem from a lack of really truly understanding yourself and self-reflection. A lot of people don't want to look at themselves, right? And like, I put you two in a category of you look at yourself and you're like, okay, how do I get better? Because you can tell then when you're out of balance, right? Like when you're maybe doing the wrong things to make yourself happy, when you need quiet time, when you need to go out for a walk, when you need to do those things. I think so, that's just my last thought with just balance. I think too many people get off balance and they look for the wrong things and they end up in a bad spot. So
yeah. I like that you say, look at yourself.
Yeah,
because I
absolutely.
think that, so many of us today are just on autopilot and we're just going. And we don't want to see any potential flaws in ourselves. But, if we innately understand that, we all have flaws in one way, shape, or form, and we can all work to get them 1% better every day, that's it all starts by just stopping and being in that present moment, like Kayla talked about, be in that present moment for just a minute and take stock of where you're at and what you can do to kind of work on making yourself better.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I feel like just everything that Brent said, I can just like, I feel the same. I can
Sorry,
back
you
that
should have
up.
talked first.
No,
Yeah.
that's okay. But it is about finding the balance. It's about finding the movement that you feel good doing. You don't always have to do anything crazy extreme. It could just be simply walking, enjoying your environment. It's finding foods that make you feel good. And sometimes you have to experiment with that. I was not a kid who grew up eating veggies. I just didn't.
Oh, me neither.
But as I got older and I wanted to become healthier or look a certain way or feel a certain way, I had to adjust my eating. And I'm still finding different foods or different things that I like to eat in certain ways, and it's just experiment and play with things until you, find what you like.
push yourself out of that comfort
Yeah.
zone a little bit, like
Yeah.
we talked about. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to bring things full circle, Brent, our shameless plug again for CatchMark Community.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Make sure people that are listening here, please look into CatchMark Community, see everything that they have to offer, stay on top of everything in the community, because like we've been talking about, community is just so important. It is, number one really for kind of making us all, have support, have the
Yeah.
support that we need to.
I would be
forward.
like, I probably need to, and again, I don't like asking for things like this, but like we also need sponsors to keep things like this going. We put a lot of our own time and resources into it, but so that's a piece of it. And then lastly, we talk a lot about teams and communities, and like I cannot sit here and act like this happens because of me. It happens because of Amy. It happens because of Courtney. It happens because of Scott. It happens because of the team that we have. They're the ones that get all of this done. I just have sometimes the crazy ideas. So find yourself some Courtneys and some Amys and some Scotts, and you'll do all right in life. So, yeah.
And before we go too much farther on the topic of teams, CatchMark is doing the first tea event.
Oh,
You wanna
yeah.
talk just a little bit about that
completely
as
forgot
well.
about that. Yeah. So the game of golf has been really important in my life. First off, just it was something that I did with my dad. He desperately wanted me to be a good golfer and love it. I didn't when I was little, but I played it with him. You know what I mean? And as I grew older, I grew a love for it. And I use the game of golf often in like analogies. Like there's just so many things that kind of mirror life. Like you can hit a good shot and get a bad result. You can't, the weather could, the leaves, like your partners, like you can't control things. You just have to play the ball where it lies, kind of thing. So we've tried to take that one more step, and we're partnered with the First Tee of West Michigan, and the First Tee of West Michigan provides opportunities for kids to get into the game of golf, but really to learn more about life and maybe help to change their life in a certain way. It's offered to all kids that want to participate. So. But for kids that might not be able to financially participate or have limiting access to golf courses, because it's an expensive thing to do, they provide all that. They provide coaches, they provide clubs, they provide places to play. They do events for kids. They all kinds of great things. So we are playing Monday at a golf marathon, and it's really to raise money for the First Tee so they can keep doing the things that they're doing. We've done some videos for them. We did a First Tee Golf Marathon video last year with Connor, my son, and I getting up in the morning and the whole shebang. But if you're so inclined to give to a good cause and to maybe help support that we're doing that Monday. There's still time. I think we posted the links on all of our social media accounts. I'll probably repost those tomorrow just so we get a weekend push, maybe.
One last chance to
do
push.
it.
So yeah.
But yeah. So
That's
if I don't
fantastic.
walk Tuesday on Lakeshore Leaders, it's because I played 100 holes of golf on Monday and I overdid it. So
Don't forget to stretch afterwards.
yeah, I'll try. If I can move afterwards, I'll be happy. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So First Tee, look for those links so you can help support an awesome cause there. Kayla with Abundance Financial. I know you've got maybe some classes and some programs coming down the pipeline. Where can people follow you and find out more information on those? Because I know you're trying to help
Yeah.
people with, get their finances in order.
I'm really trying to spread some financial education.
Yeah.
Some free resources, some hopefully paid resources too. I'm still in the rebranding process, so you can best find me on Facebook. It'll be Kayla Archer, Financial Services Professional with NyLife Securities.
Okay.
I'm sure if you get to Financial Services Professional with Kayla Archer in there, it'll probably pop
up.
But 'cause I
Right.
know it's a mouthful, but I'm still in the rebranding phase, so I will be switching my Facebook over to the, my Abundance Financial name, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
I mean,
So.
you talk about mental health and stuff like that. I mean, financial problems are probably one of the number one things that people
Absolutely.
are anxious about and worried about. So what you do, Kayla, is super, super important and helps people.
Thank you.
Again, it's an amazing thing. And like, just to, again, lots of divorce happens because of money,
Financial,
right?
yeah.
Like, and that's like, so what you're doing and helping people, and they're showing them that there is a path that you can have fun and have a future.
It's not
I
as
think
hard as
it's
you
not
think
as hard
it
as
is,
you
I
think it is.
promise.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
I mean, and I think that's why Kayla was my first guest on here, because there is so much to know about financial wellness. I mean, it is an arm of overall health and wellness, in my opinion. So, thank you for coming on again, and
Thank you.
for being an awesome contributor to everybody's health and wellness overall. Brent, thank you
Yeah, no
for
problem.
coming on. And so I want to thank everybody for listening, for tuning in today. I hope you found our discussion enlightening and empowering. And I want you all to remember that your health is your greatest asset. Investing it is key to living a fulfilling life. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, like, etc. All of the things for CatchMark Community, for Mind, Body, Luminosity. And please leave us some comments and some feedback on anything that you would like to hear. If you've got a type of wellness practice that you are just hearing about and you'd like to learn more about, please let us know in the comments, because your contributions through our comments is how we can continue to deliver valuable content to you. Until next time, stay curious, stay mindful, and stay healthy. Wishing you wellness and abundance until we meet again. The information provided in this podcast and supporting material is for general informational purposes only. It does not constitute the practice of medicine or other professional healthcare service, including the giving of medical advice. I am a doctor, but I am not your doctor, and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and any materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition that they may have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professional for any such conditions.